So here's what we got. How many folks like water bottles? Apparently so. We got some for $2.88, right? We got some to get up there. Water bottles, right? Like they're perfect. Like they're there when you need them, right? Like if you ever played sports, you ever worked out, you ever done anything, water bottles are great, right? Like they're perfect. But then what happens when you run out? You gotta refill it somewhere, right? It's gonna make sense here in a minute, so hang in here with me, okay? Hang in here with me. So tonight we talked about something last week, so I'm excited to continue the conversation. Does anybody remember the valley we talked about last week? It's called, I remember. I know it's a pop quiz. It's a pop quiz. Somebody's got their notes.
It's in my notes in my car.
Beersheba? Beersheba. So we talked about Elijah and Beersheba, right? Remember what was the name of that valley? Does anybody remember? We talked about embracing God in the valley.
Was it Elon?
Elisha is who was, or Elijah was in it. But no, we weren't in Elon.
Okay.
Not this week.
Give up.
We had those valleys. We talked about that valley on Sunday, though. On the Sunday before. But last week we talked specifically about Beersheba, just one valley, right? And embracing God in the valley. Anybody remember what it means? The valley of something? It's going to make sense in a minute. The valley of oath. The valley of oath. I know somebody said it sounded like oath. We're good. And then there was something else. The valley of what?
Peace. No.
Peace.
No. I read all that stuff.
It's not a revolution.
It's
No,
just been a week.
So here we go. I know it's been crazy. So this is going to be a building. This is going to help us go into James.
Is it
It's going to be. We have. Okay. So we have the valley. The Beersheba means the valley of oath, or the valley of
Promise.
seven. Oath is a promise. Yes, and the valley of seven what? It had seven something there.
7 sons.
Seven wells.
Wells. That's right, Jacob's wells there. Yeah.
There we go.
I remember now.
Now I'm
Thanks for
painting the
reminding.
picture, but I'm finger painting. Apparently, it is everywhere.
It was a Van Gogh. That was the problem.
Was it?
Or Picasso.
I know this was just helping me set the tone for James the next 5 weeks. Just know what I'm walking into. So last week we talked about Beersheba and Elijah and Beersheba and how he was scared and how Ahab and Jezebel were just being Jezebels, right? They were just being crazy, and like he was in a cave and he had to step out of the cave. And we talked about embracing God in that valley, and I kind of laid the groundwork, subconsciously put a cue in there and said there was something that happens at this well in the New Testament. Well, guess what? We're going to talk about it tonight. The water bottle. Remember the water bottle. It's going to make sense in a minute, okay? So we talked about the woman at the well, right? Maybe we've heard about this before. The woman at the well, and that happens in the valley of Beersheba at Jacob's well. So we're staying in this valley, right? So it's the valley of oath, the valley of the seven wells, the valley of where we are. So we're going to be in John 4. Unless I put something different on your sheet, which could possibly happen. So when we get to that, because I didn't get to put it on John 4, and a couple of different places that we're going to be there as we dive in tonight, and then we're going to, after we get done with that, we'll have some questions to be similar to last week. So here we go. What's your first verse? Is it 4 I started with? Do I remember right? Or 6? 4. Perfect. Bless you. Okay, verse 4. Now he had to go through Samaria. So this is Jesus. He's the he. So he came to a town in Samaria called Sychar. So time out. Do we remember the name of that? Okay, we talked about this a long time ago. The name of Sychar. I know. Total Recall. Good movie plug, just saying. Anyway, Total Recall. Sychar. Does anybody remember the name of that? What that means? I know it's hard. It's crazy. Sometimes I don't remember my name. So Sychar is the valley of the drunkard, or the valley, or the place of liar. The place of the liar, the place of the drunkard. So Jesus is going to Samaria in a place called the liar or the drunkard, near the plot of ground Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Okay? Jacob's well was there in Beersheba. Remember that. So last week, the valley of the oath, valley of the well, Jacob's well. Here we go. It's going to make sense, I hope. If it don't, we're going to talk through it. It's going to be good. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well. It was about noon. It was hot, right? Now we're going to skip down to verse 19. So Jesus has this interaction with this woman. We've heard it before. He talks about her. She comes up with something, though, before we get to 19. She comes up with something, right? this noon, use your imagination. Not a water bottle. This is found in some kitchens, but it didn't have a picture, so hang in here with me. Imagine this is a water jar. She comes up with her jar at noon to fill it up. She's got her jar, right? She comes to Jesus. She talks to him. Jesus is chilling, waiting on her, ready to go. In the place of the drunkard and the liar, but it's also located in the valley of the promise and the valley of the well. This woman comes up. She's an adulteress. She's been caught in it. She's been married about 11 times. She's got a lot of lives, got a lot of husbands. He calls her out on it, tells her everything she's done. And yet, he's having this interaction with her in the middle of the day with her jar. So, remember the jar in a minute. It's going to make sense. That was kind of like her water bottle. Her water ran out. So she went to go refill it. It was about noon. She talks to Jesus. She's asking him to give her a drink. He tells her, hey, the water I got won't let you go thirsty again. And all of a sudden, he calls her out and says, tell your husband to come back. She says, I have none, and then he drops it on her and says, you're right when you say that. The fact is, you've got 5. Now we'll get to verse 19. Sir, the woman says, I can see you are a prophet. Now I wonder what kind of tone she had in there. Like, I can see some hair flying, some fingers, some hips wiggling. Like, she's, sir. Something was happening. She got stank eye. She's got something when she's talking. Sir, I can see you're a prophet. She's getting ready. She's getting ready to come back real hard. I can see you're a prophet. Our ancestors worshipped on this mountain. But you Jews, remember, it's a Samaritan woman again. Samaritans and Jews. Remember, we talked about the Samaritans way back when. If not, you can always. Here's a great plug because we put them online. You can always look at all the videos. It's on Thursday night greenhouse gathering on the screen there. We talked about this, and the Samaritans were considered half-breeds, and so they weren't supposed to talk. They were considered unclean. They were considered that, and all of a sudden, she's calling him out and saying, hey, but you Jews claim this place is where we must worship in Jerusalem. Okay? Woman, Jesus replied. Didn't even give her name. But you know Jesus knew her name. Let's be real. Didn't Jesus know her name? Like, come on. And he just says, yeah, woman. Woman, believe me, the time is coming when you will worship the Father neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. See, you Samaritans worship what you do not know. We worship what we do know, for salvation is from the Jews. Yet a time is coming, and now has come, that the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For they are the kind of worshipers the Father seeks. God is spirit, and his worshipers must worship in spirit and truth. The woman said this, Jesus sitting right there. I know that Messiah, called Christ, is coming. When he comes, he'll explain everything to us. So see, I don't know her tone here. Because he just told her everything about herself. Remember, he just straight up said, go get your husband. She says, I don't have one. He said, I know, you done had 5. And the one you with ain't your current one, right? And all of a sudden, he's telling her all this, and yet she says, hey, I know the Messiah's coming, and he's going to tell us everything. So we'll get into this in a minute, but I wonder how many times we look to Jesus for an answer and say, hey, you don't know everything, Jesus. Like, Jesus, I just can't wait till you reveal everything about your plan to me, because it just makes so much more sense when you tell me everything. He's just like, idiot, I seriously just told you everything. So much so, Jesus declared, I, the one speaking to you, I am he. Now, before we go on and finish up and wrap this up, before we get to 27, and then we'll fill out your points, and this will make sense here in a minute. How many times did Jesus answer that he was the Messiah to people when they asked him who he was in the Bible? I'm not going to give you, it could be a number, I really don't know the number. I know to this point, he always questioned back and says what? Who do you say I am? But yeah, this woman, who we don't know her name, who says everything will be revealed, who he reveals everything to, he literally says, okay, if you really want to know everything, it's not just about you, I'm the Messiah. Like I'm the one. How crazy is that? Just then his disciples, his boys came back and were surprised to find him talking to a woman. But no one asked, what do you want? Or why are you talking with her? They were scared. They knew who he was. Then leaving her water jar, the woman went back to town and said to the people, come, see, a man told me everything I ever did. Could this be a Messiah? They came out of town and made their way toward him. So in this, Jesus is just raised, he's just taught Nicodemus here in the temple courts about how he had to be born again. He's going through, he's about to heal the official's son, he's got some healings going. But all of a sudden this woman and this interaction in this valley just kind of, it's going to make sense to say, but it just kind of made me thinking, kind of got me going about hope in the dark. Because here's the thing, whether we want to admit it or not, all of us have a jar. We all carry a lot of crap in it. A lot of times that crap will pour out, almost like a chamber pot. And then we'll go try to fill it up again, all the way through our life. And yet Jesus is sitting at this well, saying, hey, what I give you, you're never going to thirst again from it. And yet we'll say, hey man, that's awesome, Jesus, I don't know if you know about this guy, but it's going to be a Messiah who comes. And what he says is going to be true. And he's just sitting there on that well, our hope in the dark, our promise, the valley of promise, the valley of oath, the valley of well. And we take all the things from the place of lying, the place of drunkenness. We even get drunk off this stuff that we carry around in here. All this stuff we carry. And we say, hey Jesus, one day, it's all going to make sense, okay? It's all going to be revealed. And he's just sitting there telling us everything we have. And we just say, if I can just fill my little jar, I can get through the day. And that's all I got to carry with me. And I started thinking about that story, and I started thinking about this, and it's real simple. I mean, we're going to have questions after this, but it's not about the jar. This whole story is not about the jar. Yet I care about my jar, don't I? I care about how big your jar is. I care about how pretty your jar is. I care about what you're carrying in your jar. So much so I look at my jar, my chamber pot, if you will, instead of a jar, and I wonder, do you carry as much as I do? Like, there's some things in my life that might be in my jar. It could be my career, it could be my family, it could be ministry, it could be the car I want, the house I want, but I fill this jar with what I think will sustain me for today. I carry it everywhere. And this woman walks up with what will sustain her for a day and says that, I'm thinking about all these things in her life, and she's like, I could just get through today. Tomorrow's going to be better. If I could just make it through today. I could just make it through today. Tomorrow's going to get better. And she walked up thinking, oh yeah, I know where I can fill this up to make my day better. Now she had 6 other wells to choose from. Yet she walks to Jacob's. Isn't that crazy? Jesus is sitting there at just the right time. And I think in our life, so many times with my jar, I know where those 6 other wells are. So much so I'll do everything I can to avoid Jacob's well, right? If I can just get some water, all I'm looking for is some water. I don't care where I get it. I just got to get my jar filled up. But here's what I want to tell you in the story where we get caught up is the woman notices Jesus doesn't have a jar when he asks her for something to drink. And she's probably thinking, it's just my jar. You ain't got your own jar full? Like, what's wrong with you? Who comes to a well without a jar? Like, what in the world? Who comes there? And yet so many times we see at the end of this story, she took what she was trying to be sustained for a day. She sets her jar down and goes and tells everyone else about it. So the question I have about the jar is this, because so many of us put our junk in there and our jar in there. I wonder if so many times in our life, we're so worried about our jar that we miss Jesus sitting on the well. Like, our hope in the dark is in the middle of this valley of promise, this valley of oath, this valley of wells. And we're coming from a place of deceit, lies, and drunkenness. This is where he was. In the middle of this woman being lied to, probably about who she is, who she was, where she was going, what she would amount to, who she should be, what she should look like, how she should dress, when she should even go get water. And we just worry about our little jar that we miss the Messiah sitting there waiting. I do that. Yeah, I think it's about the jar. I think it's about the vessel that's carrying from point A to point B. I get so caught up in it. I think so much about it. Because you know what I can do with my little jar? I can hold it. And if I can hold it, then maybe I can control it, right? And if I can control it, then I can just get through the day. If I can just get through the day, those 1,000 emails I get, if I can just get through that day, I can make it work. And we come to Jesus with our little jar, and it's about making my jar prettier, making my jar lighter, making my jar better. And we miss out that he's sitting there on the well. So my question is for us, and then we'll pause, and then we'll have one more set, and we'll be good. What is the difference between a jar and a well? How do you move from trying to fill a jar from an external source to tapping in the well of Jesus that flows internally? Because he promises her, if you drink from my well, you will never run dry, as he sits on the well. I mean, I'm just going to be real. Like, if I'm at the well in Greenville and I see somebody telling me that, I probably think he's crazy. Like, let's be real, like in this world, right? And so I'm wondering if that's where she is, and I'm wondering if that's what's happening. But when you encounter Jesus, there's something that changes. So my question is, we'll pause and then we'll get back at it. What's the difference between a jar and a well? Obvious answers on that, but what's the difference between that? That's it.
Because I am not going to keep my jar.
I do not. Okay, next thing. First off, it's not about the jar. So we talked about the difference between a jar and a well, and how you move from trying to fill a jar from an external source, which was really funny. It was found at the bottom of a physical well. And yet the spiritual well that Jesus has, the spiritual beings we are, flows internally from us. So here's the second thing. It's going to make sense, hopefully. Are you at the right well? When you're searching for hope in the dark, are you at the right well? First off, you got to realize it's not about the jar. Second thing is, are you at the right well? There were 7 wells to choose from. Now, Jesus could have been at any one of those, because he's Jesus. He's cool like that. You know, he's cool like that. But it makes me think again, not only do I try to carry my jar, but there's so many times in my life where I'll go to the well 2 blocks down the road instead of the well that Jesus is sitting at right outside the door, right? Like, I do that sometimes. Ooh, maybe later, Jesus. Maybe later. Not right now. Not right now. I'll get you a little bit, Jesus. I'm going to go fill my jar. There's some macaroni and cheese on sale over here. I'm just going to let you know. I'm trying to fill my jar, right? It's the only vegetable I know. So, that being said, you know, maybe that's where we have our jar. Maybe that just made me think, like, sometimes I wonder if we're at the right well. So we go to the wrong well, we'll keep dipping that jar in, and we'll think we're full. Won't we? Because that water bottle, man, it only filled me, but the next quarter playing football, I still needed that water because I was sweating like crazy, right? I still needed something to sustain me. And the difference between the well and the jar to me is temporal, like we said, versus eternal. A well springs forth. A jar, it's only as good as it is until it's broken. You gotta get a new one. You gotta get a new one, right? So, questions I have for us on that is, how does Christ in you create a well in your heart? And how does this well produce your hope?